Hi there. My name is Raj, and we are going to travel through time. I lived on a farm in this farmhouse near Mechanicsburg, Ohio. My father and mother and their fathers and mothers worked as farmers their entire lives. Our dairy farm was small at first, with 100 acres and 15 cows, but then it grew to more 300 acres and 100 cows. Dad first moved to the farm owned by Verge Miracle, but shortly after, Clyde Frost bought the farm and installed a state-of-the-art pipeline milking system. We enjoyed the best of times when our Aunt Mary, Dad's sister, and her boys would visit us on the farm. Those visits were always a special treat. When I was 12, Dad was too ill and not able to continue farming. Mom took Dad to so many doctors and hospitals trying to find a remedy for his poor health. We were so fortunate to have Clyde Frost in our lives. Clyde made certain Dad received the best care and then provided Dad with a good job at the Chevrolet dealership after Dad recovered. We moved to Mechanicsburg during the first 6-week period of my 6th grade. We lived in a rental house on West Main Street near Goshen Park and a short walk to school. I became a patrol boy, made new friends, and began passing the Columbus Dispatch newspaper, it seemed moments after leaving the farm late in the year 1958. I was in 6th grade, Glenn in 2nd grade and Mark in kindergarten. Julia was 2 years old. My parents were 34 years old, having grown up during the Great Depression era, always fearing another loss or setback. I don't know what we would have done without the aid from our grandparents and great-aunts and uncles. My mother was born and raised on the Williams family farm between Rosedale and Plumwood, Ohio. Mom's younger brother, Dwight, his wife, Ollie, and their children, Nancy, Joe, Kathy, and Joyce lived in the small house halfway down the quarter-mile lane that ended at my grandmother Williams' house. Grandfather Marion Williams died during a terrible farming accident when Mom and Dwight were teenagers. Their sister, Beatrice, was in college. Dad's father, Howard, Bud, Lewis died, and my grandmother Molly had married a longtime friend of the Lewis family, Joe Wildermuth. Grandma moved from her Summerford home that Dad helped buy after he returned from World War II to a farm with Joe, east of Mechanicsburg on RT4. We were so fortunate to be surrounded by aunts, uncles, cousins and friends from town, and I was certainly happy to no longer work the long hours on the farm. We were always surrounded with family and friends enjoying meals and good times, and life seemed so simple. Mom's close friend Mabel Wyant, husband Paul, and their daughters, Mary Ellen and Paula Sue were frequent visitors as well as former neighbors from our farm days, and also Dad's childhood friends from London, Oscar and Ethel Gibson and their kids, Ronnie and Shirley. We played cards, games of all kinds, and occupied out time with outdoor activities. TV was not such a big thing at that time. People actually talked directly with one another. Seemed like all the adults smoked, even some of the wives, but we were not around much alcohol, and even then, the drinking might be limited to a 12-ounce beer in a returnable bottle. Christmas time was always very special. Mom would start a Christmas savings account every year because we could not count on Santa Claus to bring everything on our Christmas wish lists. We went to the United Methodist Church for Sunday school and church services every week. Mom sang in the choir and Dad was an usher. At one time we went to the old original Methodist church on the corner of Sandusky and Walnut Streets, but sometime around the time we moved to Mechanicsburg the two Methodist churches consolidated. The old Methodist church played a big part in the Underground Railroad, helping slaves move from the south to the north. There was even a secret room behind the altar and choir loft. We enjoyed so many good times with our Williams cousins and Dad's great-uncle Emmett, IKE, who was really more like a brother and nearly the same age, and his wife, Helen, and their three kids, Petey, Bob and Jane, who lived across the street from us. 3 doors down the street from our house lived my great-uncle Walter and Aunt Florence Jones. Aunt Florence was my grandmother William's oldest sister. After I was born, Dad, Mom and I lived in 3 different homes that Uncle Walter and Aunt Florence owned. Uncle Walter and Julia shared the same birthday. Our family was so many people and we had so many celebrations for birthdays and holidays, and our homes would be so filled with people from my dad's side of the family with Grandma and Joe Wildermuth, Jack and Mary Snyder, and their three boys John, Phil and Chris. Great-Grandma Louis and sometimes Ike, and Helen with PD, Bob and Janie. Then there was Mom's side with Grandma Williams and many times her sisters and families like Aunt Florence and Uncle Walter, along with Bob and Doris, Dick and Lucille Jones, Aunt Imo and Agnes, Aunt Ruth and Uncle Ora, Dwight and Ollie with Nancy, Joe, Kathy and Joyce, Doc Morris with Susie, Betty Ruth, Bea and Billy Morse. There would be so much food and so much fun and so loud. Mary Goings Lewis, my dad's grandmother, was always referred to as great-grandma or by her boys as Mom was part of our lives until her 99th year. Great-grandma had a brother, my great-uncle Tom Goings, who lived with the old Lewis family for years before moving to a house trailer in the woods. He knew all the birds and animals of the land, loved to fish, lived a quite uneventful life without TV or much news from the outside world. Dad and Uncle Ike would take turns cutting Uncle Tom's hair about every 6 months. Uncle Tom was a recluse and liked it that way. Here is Julia and great-uncle Walter celebrating their birthday. Uncle Walter and Aunt Florence always gave us $1 for birthdays and a pair of socks for Christmas. Julia and Mark posed for this picture on our back steps at the house on West Main Street before heading off to church. Sometimes we walked, sometimes we drove. Mark celebrates a birthday. Ike and Helen, PD, Bob and Janie came from across the street to celebrate with Mom's cake. We played outside all the time and had a swing set in our backyard. During the summer there was also a badminton net. We always looked forward to the visits with Aunt Mary and Uncle Jack, John, Phil and Chris Snyder from West Jefferson. Most times Joe and Grandma Wildermuth would also join for the dinners and celebrations. Dad was still having problems with severe migraine headaches and had lost his ability to speak. He only whispered, but he could whisper very loud. It seemed everyone smoked, Grandma, Joe, Dad, Jack and Mary. But Mom never smoked. I imagine we inhaled several thousands of cigarettes as secondary smoke from our elders. We enjoyed special meals with the Snyders of T-bone steaks or fried oysters. Uncle Doc Morse would sometimes visit with our cousins, Susie, Betty Ruth, Bea and Billy. Bea and Billy are twins and their mother, Aunt Bea, died soon following their births. Grandma Williams raised the twins until time for them to begin attending school. Bing and Virginia Boyd from Plumwood and school days at Monroe were some of Dad and Mom's closest friends. Their son, Jimmy, was one of my most favorite friends. We were a couple of crazy kids whenever we got together. Mom and Dad's friends from childhood would gather several times a year to play cards and socialize. Uncle Dwight and Aunt Ollie were always part of the group along with the Becklers, Littlers, Carmonys, Hollands, Adelsbergers and so many others. That was another time. There was so much smoking, so many stories and so much laughter. Once a year Mom would go with Grandma Williams and the great aunts and sometimes friends from our time on the farm and school in Plumwood to the Ruth Lyons TV show in Cincinnati with Bob Braun and Willie Thorpe. Ruth Lyons was the original opera when we were kids. Throughout the years, during visits, my family would win prizes on the TV show like bicycles and even my dog, Boots. Boots loved all of my family but was very ill-tempered to anyone not closely connected. Clyde and Gladys Frost were our guardian angels and Clyde was Dad's best friend. Mom's favorite first cousin was Joanne, Uncle Ori's and Aunt Ruth's daughter who married a doctor. Bob and Joanne lived in Miami, Florida. Bob, Joanne, Jane, Judy, Sally and Danny would drive from Florida to the farm outside Mechanicsburg every year and spend a week visiting family and Joanne's school days friends. We rode donkeys, played hide and seek, and had so much fun. Bob was also one of Dad's closest friends. Bob helped Dad recover his normal voice and rid him of his years and years of migraine headaches. During the annual Andrews family trip from Florida, there was always a big family get-together of the Williams, Hawks, Jones Morse and sometimes other family members, like the Snyders. There was not so much smoking with those family members and never any alcohol. There were so many cousins and we were all nearly the same age, but I was the oldest. Lots of time was passed with both my grandmothers, as well as aunts and uncles and cousins. Grandma Williams and her twin sister Imo Hawk were both college graduates and school teachers. I began participating in 4-H activities, and one of the highlights was going to 4-H Camp Clifton with my friends. Camp gave a welcome break from the family. Glenn and I both enjoyed 4-H so much, and later we both were selected as camp counselors. One of the daily best activities was hiking from camp to the swimming pool where we would play and swim for more than an hour. The hike took us through the historic Clifton Gorge, known to the Native Americans and Simon Kenton. A very special time each year was the annual picnic and gathering of the Frost Chevrolet employees. Clyde and Gladys paid for everything and the employees, spouses and children contributed with the carrying of salads and desserts. There were games and the adults played cards. Sometimes, we had so much fun and were so tired. Mom completed business school in Columbus, Ohio and worked for an insurance company. She also supplemented her income by being a nanny, and one of her favorites was David. The bricks for the Williams home were kilned on the farm. The walls of the house were 2 feet thick. Fourth of July celebrations were a blast at Goshen Memorial Park, one-time home to the Ohio State Fair and Chautauqua series with people like Mark Twain. Close friends from across the street were the Don and Josephine Skillman, who had the town's funeral home. Their daughter Judy became a lifelong friend of mine.